More now on our top story. Newly released text messages between FBI officials Peter Strzok and Lisa Page are raising new questions over what role then President Obama may have played in the months leading up to the 2016 election. Page texted Strzok in September of 2016 saying, quote, POTUS wants to know everything we're doing. Now, that was around the time the FBI was about to end its investigation into Hillary Clinton and expand its Russia probe. So we don't really know what that's referring to. Ben Shapiro is editor-in-chief of DailyWire.com and the host of the Ben Shapiro Show. Great to have you with us, Ben. What's your reaction to the new texts?
I mean, it all depends on what the context is. So it seemed like the original context, people thought it had to do with the Clinton investigation. Now it seems like the opposite. It has to do with general Russian interference in the election. But until we have the context, it's hard to know whether this is something important or not. What we do know is that Strzok and Page were motivated against the president. They didn't like the president. How that manifested in their behavior is something unclear. It's pretty clear, by the way, that the FBI and the DOJ were working hand in glove with top members of the Obama administration with regard to the Hillary Clinton investigation a lot earlier than this. When it came to Loretta Lynch, for example, working with James Comey. It's hard to believe that the president of the United States would go on national television and say he didn't know anything about Hillary's private server at the same time that he was emailing her at her private email address. And obviously that was a serious problem, I think, for him and for the FBI and for the DOJ. But as far as these specific texts, they may turn out to be nothing. We just don't know yet.
All right, I want to play a little bit of what he told our Chris Wallace. This is back in April of 2016, as a lot of these things were ramping up. Here's what he said about getting involved or not getting involved with investigations.
I do not talk to the Attorney General about pending investigations. I do not talk to FBI directors about pending investigations. We have a strict line and always have maintained it, previous presidents.
Just to button this up.
I guarantee it. I guarantee that there is no political influence in any investigation conducted by the Justice Department or the FBI, not just in this case, but in any case.
So, Ben, do you take him at his word there?
No.
How do you interpret that?
I didn't take him at his word, you know, when he said it, and I didn't take him at his word before these texts came out, because there were other texts from Page and Strzok talking specifically about going easy on Hillary Clinton because she might be elected president of the United States. So this latest round of texts, again, seems to me almost irrelevant. I think it's the earlier texts that make more of a difference with regard to the Hillary investigation.
Meanwhile, we're getting new information today that relates to the FISA applications and warrants with regard to the Steele dossier, looking into Carter Page. We've gotten a lot more information now from this memo that came from Senators Grassley and Graham outlining not only what we'd heard in the House memo, but it seems to add detail to that and some texture to that as well. What do you make of those revelations? I mean, they don't seem new, but they seem like they seem to bolster the later memo that came out from the House Intel Committee.
They do add some depth of accusation and allegation to the actual Nunes memo. Well, what they essentially allege is that there were Hillary Clinton advocates, friends who were in Libya who were funneling information to the State Department after Hillary left, obviously, but there were still people she'd worked with. And the State Department was then funneling that information to Christopher Steele, who was then packaging that information and handing it over to the FBI. If that's the case, it looks like the State Department was being used as a go-between for bad information pushed forward by Hillary Clinton allies, including perhaps Sidney Blumenthal, if Trey Gowdy's implication means anything. If that's the case, then one of two things could be true. Either there could be some sort of corruption inside the FBI knew that this was bad info, they didn't check it, and they were so out to get the Trump campaign that they decided to open a FISA warrant on Carter Page out of suspicion and basically just gin something up. The other possibility is that they were actually suspicious of Trump, they were actually suspicious of Carter Page, and they decided to cut a few corners and use information they didn't know was completely good in getting the Carter Page application. If that's the case, if that's what happened, the latter thing, then we actually have a broader problem with FISA applications and FISA courts, not just with regard to this specific application.
All right. Meanwhile, and we're all hoping we get those FISA applications at some point because it would clear up a lot. And meanwhile, you don't think it would be a good idea for the president to sit down with Special Counsel Mueller as he is now moving forward with his investigation. You said this. You said no lawyer, including Joe Pesci and my cousin Vinny with the full-on clown velvet suit, which is one of my favorite visuals ever, would allow President Trump to get into a room with Robert Mueller. It would be the height of stupidity to do this. But he is chomping at the bit to do it. You know that.
Well, I mean, if the lawyers have to take him down to the basement of the White House and physically chain him up to prevent him from talking to Mueller, I would recommend that be on the table so long as they don't violate his consent in any way, because that would be illegal. But it would be such a mistake, just as a lawyer, it would be such a mistake to put somebody like President Trump, who likes to bloviate, who likes to exaggerate, who likes to say that everything is the biggest, the strongest, the best, the hugest, the most incredible, put that in front of a trained lawyer like Robert Mueller, a trained investigator like Robert Mueller, who's going to sit there trying to pick apart statements. Like, Bill Clinton was a very good lawyer and a very smart guy when it came to manipulating language, and he got caught in a perjury trap by a special investigator. It's not hard to see how President Trump gets caught in some sort of perjury trap or obstruction trap by the FBI.
Ben Shapiro, thank you very much. And by the way, I'm going to have to check out My Cousin Vinny again this weekend. Just some of the best courtroom scenes ever in history. Ben, thanks.
Absolutely. Thanks so much.
All right, it's one of the mainstream destroy Trump media's favorite tactics, all to prevent you from getting the whole story. Now, it's called bias of omission, and today it was on full display. Now, despite the bombshell revelations in the Grassley Graham memo and some pretty damning text messages from FBI officials, lovers, Lisa Page and Peter Strzok, well, the mainstream media is utterly silent. Here's the reaction. Founder, managing partner, Skybridge Capital. I'm sorry, Anthony, I'm not Bill Maher. You're not on a liberal show tonight, all right?
Hey, there were Republicans attacking me, Sean. It wasn't liberals. That's the crazy part of that.
That's actually true. You take heat from all comers.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. And the author of The Smear, How Shady Political Operatives and Fake News Controls What You See, What You Think, and How You Vote. The anchor of Full Measure, Cheryl Atkinson, is back with us. All right, Anthony, to me, I think Joe DeGenevieve is right, and I've been saying it. This is the biggest corruption scandal in the history, perhaps, modern-day politics. It is so makes Watergate look like stealing a Snickers bar.
The problem with it, you're calling it that now, but we still got another 10 layers to drill into and rip off more skin. And so once you get really, really deep, Sean, it's absolutely uncontrollable. And so what's going to happen now, they're going to make a pincher movement. You should read the manifesto, the best-selling book by Cheryl Atkinson. She'll describe to you what they're going to do to everybody. They're going to flatten up everybody, dehumanize them. They're going to try to criminalize the process of finding out the criminals. And it's a nightmare for the American people. But I'm glad you're exposing it, Sean. You're doing a big service, a patriotic service. And you're protecting the president who honestly won the election despite all of this nonsense that was happening in the politicization of these agencies.
In many ways, Cheryl, you have been a victim of all of this. It was almost a year ago on this program, we broke the story right here with Sarah Carter and John Solomon, who've done phenomenal work about how, yeah, they got a FISA warrant against Donald Trump. Donald Trump tweets out that, oh, they wiretapped me, and the media went crazy. Turns out everything and much more, we've been literally unpeeling layers of an onion here with real facts and information. The media's gone with a story about Russia-Trump collusion with zero evidence for a year, and they, by omission, don't cover these stories. Why?
Well, just to amend one thing, I don't know that they had a FISA warrant directly on Donald Trump. I haven't seen evidence that they did. They may
Carter
have
Page
used
in the Trump. Right. Go ahead.
They may have used warrantless techniques. There's all kinds of ways. I was told even before Donald Trump announced for office that intel officials, and I was told this by insiders, have sometimes been using bad information to bring to the FISA court to wrap up other people that are the true targets that they can't get a warrant against, but to wrap them up in incidental targeting different ways without maybe a direct warrant.
Isn't that what happened to General Flynn, based on what we know? Isn't that what happened to poor General Flynn?
Of course.
Yeah, I mean, I think from what we know in news reporting and what we've learned since then is that they, under the auspices of listening to a Russian official, the ambassador from Russia to the United States, they then accidentally captured somebody who may have been allegedly their true target and someone that they hoped would lead them to mischief.
The bottom line is you've got one presidential candidate that pays for a phony Russian dossier. None of it's verified. And she's also, Christopher Steele's being fed from Clinton's own associates. Then they don't tell a FISA judge the facts of who bought and paid for this phony dossier that's unverified. And then it's used to get a FISA warrant. And you're right about incidental unmasking and leaking raw intelligence. And the media, for the most part, there's been a blackout. Isn't that true?
I think there has largely been a lack of curiosity and a lack of accurate and thorough reporting on one side of this issue. There's been plenty representing one viewpoint, but very little on the other side, except to the extent that it debunks. And I think that part of the reason for that is there is a much bigger scandal under the surface, and some people know this, which is, in my view, not that they were going after President Trump perhaps during the campaign, but why? Because unlike what they thought would happen if Jeb Bush were elected or Hillary Clinton, there are some inside the intelligence community who've been there for more than one administration who feared that Donald Trump could bring in people who would peel back the layers and see the allegedly improper and illegal surveillance techniques they've implemented for a long time.
So deep state, Anthony Scaramucci, deep state
Yeah,
gate.
but I mean, my question to the American people is how much longer are we going to tolerate this? My question is also to every one of us out there that see this happening. How do we deal with these people, Sean? Because Cheryl, myself, and you all know how ruthless they are, how diabolical they are, and they'll stop at anything to stop honest people from uncovering them.
Well, you mean like what Chuck... Well, Anthony.
Yeah, exactly.
What Chuck Schumer said, they'll get you 6 ways in Sunday, and what this guy on fake news CNN saying, they're going to win?
Yeah, exactly. That monster on that was saying that we're around for 100+ years and you're around for 13 months. This is sort of nonsense. The American people have to understand that their government is there to serve them. We are not here to serve the people that work in the government. They are our servants, and they need to be held accountable for the nonsense that's going on right now.
Last word, Cheryl Atkinson.
Well, I think there's much more to come.